What's up, guys? We're back with another Super 7 review, sort of. It's kind of a review, a mini review, a demo in some ways. We're taking a look at the ThunderCats Wave 1 booster pack. So if you have the figures, or if you recall from my reviews, there were a handful of problems with Wave 1, from miscolored Thunder Pants on Panthro, to Jackalman's accessories not being painted, to Jackalman's neck not being painted, things like that. So Super 7 decided the best way to try and rectify those problems was to issue replacement parts to anybody that got a hold of those figures. So if you got Wave 1, you're going to get these parts to swap out. So we're going to talk about them, we're going to talk about what's inside, showcase what's different between what came with Wave 1, and then how to use some of these, because there is a little work that's going to have to be done on Panthro to put his new underwear on. So let's get started. So the focus of this booster pack, again, is to replace some errored items that came in the Wave 1 Panthro and Jackalman specifically. So there are no replacement parts for anything else from Wave 1. So there's nothing for Mum-Ra and there's nothing for Lion-O. These two are, for lack of a better term, they are the offenders of the wave. So we've got, for example, Panthro here. Move Jackalman aside for a second. So here he is with the Mattel version. He's got the wrong colored trunks. These are light blue. They should be dark blue. Jackalman, by comparison, he has the wrong, or lack of paint rather, on his neck. So there's no paint on this neck, and there's paint on the Mattel version. Beyond that, Jackalman didn't have any paint on his weapons either. So we're going to talk about those. So we're going to run through Jackalman first, just because he's the one that has really the easiest kind of setup when it comes to changing things out. Panthro is going to take some doing, but we're going to see what improvements they've made to Jackalman in turn, and also how we swap out to that unpainted neck piece for a painted one. So the goal for Jackalman is to replace one piece, the armor pauldron and the fur piece, and it actually just sits over top of the figure. This guy right here. And this basically matches what we got with the Mattel version, where the fur itself is not painted, just the throat stripe, really. This white piece here is what should have been painted. The actual piece we got from Super 7 had an error where the entire thing was just painted the same color as the fur. There was no accent colors that ran up from the mouth into the chest, so it was just sort of one big shock of orange. So what you do here is just pop the head off, and you just really just sort of pull this over top of the figure, and you can pop it off. It's just a little overlay piece. You really don't even need any heat. It'll just come apart right there, and then you can swap it just like this, and it will sit down over top of the figure, and then you can load that head back on and you are good to go. He really has no issue taking this new piece. It's the exact same kind of thing that we saw with the first figure, just with the correct paint applications that more accurately match what we got from Mattel, years back at this point. He does, however, include a few other things that, at the time, I honestly didn't know if they were mistakes or not, because I just didn't remember when it came time to thinking back to the prototype images that we had seen. And that would be his guns. So Jackalman came with 3 mutant guns in that first wave, and you had 2 of these little pistols right here, and they don't have any paint on them, really. They're just sort of like a metallic-y plastic, with this one being sort of a kind of cobalt black kind of color. And then we had this big rifle as well. None of them had any paint on them, but we do have painted versions. And of course, after I did that first review, I was told, well, wait a second, there were painted samples shown at all of the conventions and initial promos, and it just completely slipped my mind. So we've got, for the hunting rifle, the sort of big rifle this time around, you've got this guy here. So these are all completely different color schemes. So you've got this one, it's kind of like almost like a periwinkle with brown accents on it. These are all the same sculpts, just different color schemes. For this gun, we've got another color scheme. So this is kind of like a purple and a blue. Mostly they're just cast plastic with little paint accents, but they do stand out a lot more than these sort of just generic black pieces. And then the last one that we've got is this other pistol, which has the same kind of color scheme. So you've got sort of the purpley color for the base, and then you've got that sort of light blue periwinkle going on for the accents. So I do like this. I'm glad they changed that. It wasn't something that, again, really kind of jumped out at me, but once I realized that it was something that was missing, I was, you know, kind of bummed out about it. It's nice to be able to get these. So now you've got a whole arsenal of mutant guns if you need extra things, or if you want to use them for other mutants that we eventually get down the road. So Jackalman, very, very simple to swap out his piece. It's a simple fix. And then you've got these 3 extra guns that go along with him to sort of complete the set. Panthro, on the other hand, when it comes to actually doing his replacement, this is not going to be the easiest of swaps because it does involve heat. You are going to have to remove a piece of the figure that, generally speaking, is not meant to come off once it's on. It's part of the construction process for the figure itself. So you're going to have to actually sort of pry the Thunder pants off. And Super7 does provide a little instruction sheet. You'll get it with your pack here. So it tells you heat it up, use a tool to sort of rotate the shorts gradually over the hips, and then you swap them out with the new parts. Is it as easy as that? We're going to find out. The first thing that I think I want to talk about, though, is the sort of bonus item that they include. So let's just pop his head off right now. And we get a new head sculpt. Or rather, a new head in general. It's not a new head sculpt, but it's a new paint application for Panthro. So we get a sort of, Lion-O summoning the ThunderCats type of thing. So he's got the yellow eyes where the Sword of Omens has been used and the ThunderCats have been given the call. And I really, really like this. My only negative with this is that I'm going to want this for all of them now. It's not going to be a situation where I'm going to be satisfied to only have the one. So I hope that at some point down the road, they're going to be able to put these in with other figures, or maybe due to some of the delays we've seen with waves 2, 3, and 4, that they might be able to somehow still get these in, because I would absolutely love to have a Tigra, a Panthro, and a Chitara all lined up in that sort of like iconic shot where all 3 of them are having sort of the call to arms, and then of course get them for Wily Kit and Cat whenever those come out. So I'm really happy with this. You know, the fact that we have to do all this and change out these parts is one thing, but for them to give us something like this, and honestly something that I'm inclined to use in my display, is a bit of a nice way to kind of smooth things over. So I'm really happy with this. Paint applications on it are really clean and crisp too. No problems with that either. So that's pretty cool. I'm very happy with that. But as usual, I had my suspicions, so of course I had to hit this guy with some black light, and he does in fact have glow-in-the-dark eyes. So let him sort of charge in the sunlight, again hit him with black light, and his eyes are going to glow. I really like that addition to this figure. Not only do I like the fact that we get this head sculpt or this new paint application for this guy, but the fact that they made him glow makes it all the more exciting. I do think that before we actually start trying this, the one thing that's probably going to need to be done, just to get it out of the way, I'm going to take the armor off, and you just pop it off from the back. There's a little peg there, and you just sort of pop it off, and let's get him in his sort of muscly shirtless mode. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to use a hair dryer. We're going to heat up his underwear basically, and then we're going to try to pry it up because it sort of locks into the hips, and then we're going to try to rotate it. We'll see how that goes on camera, and we'll get a explanation of sorts in terms of how it goes and how it all works. Okay, so it's at this point where I'm going to stop and say that I'm having a really hard time actually doing this. I can get these trunks pulled down decently enough, but when it's coming time to getting them over the ball joints and actually over the thighs, it's just not working for me. Super7 did put up a video where they showed this happening perfectly fine with no real issues, but it's not working for me. So I'm going to opt for maybe I don't know, it might be the more graceful option, but it's also potentially the one that could have a little bit more difficulty, or maybe not necessarily your comfort level. I'm going to take the legs apart. So you really just need to heat them up, and then they'll pop apart. So I've already taken this one off just to try it out, and you can pop the legs off, and then we will continue. So I've got this one off. We're going to go back, and I'm going to do your left right now, and then we'll see about taking the trunks off and putting the new ones on. Okay, so we've got Panthro with his missing legs now, and I'm going to see exactly if this is easier. I'm assuming this is going to be easier just based on the fact that there's nothing really getting in the way now. One thing I will say is that the trunks are actually keyed. So one side is different than another. It's just to make sure that they're oriented right at the factory. You know, like a lot of things we see with action figures. So yeah, we've got him taken apart there. So we've got our trunks off. And I'm going to say, just for my money, well, not my money, but for my experience, this was more simplistic than trying to shimmy them off the figure. And it really didn't do much in terms of making me think that I was going to break him or anything like that. His hips are very, very sturdy. So I've got very little worry that it's going to be a problem. Of course, your mileage may vary. Don't come crying to me if you decide to do it this way and he breaks. I didn't tell you to do it. The instructions do seem to work. It's just not working very well for me. So now we're gonna, I guess we'll put him together. All right, so we got our Panthro ready to go. He's got his new Thunder pants there. And just for, you know, why not? There we go. We've got our like episode 1, you know, Exodus Panthro there. Our naked Panthro that, you know, looks awful. We're never going to get in figure form, I'm sure. So we've got our figure and we've got our underwear here. And these are keyed again. So the bigger side is on his right. It'll be your left. And there's actually copyright info that goes on the back side. So that's the side that you'll see with the copyright info. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to start by heating this up, and then we're going to shimmy it back over top of the crotch. And then once you've got your legs on, or you've got your underwear on, however you've managed to do it, obviously, you know, this isn't necessarily the way you have to do it. I did it a way that worked for me. We can put his harness back on, and it just slides over top of him. And then you peg it in on the back, just like this. And you'll clasp it together. And then your Panthro is ready to be as accurate as is going to happen for this particular line. So we've got Panthro with the dark blue underpants with the new bonus head sculpt, and then we've got Jackalman with the correctly painted throat fur alongside a nice array of painted and multicolor weapons that aren't just sort of metallic-y black this time around. So as far as how this all works, I am going to urge caution no matter how you do this when it comes to Panthro. Again, this worked just fine for the Super7 folks in their video. I had a lot of problems with it. I'm not someone that takes my toys apart very often, and I was really concerned that I was going to rip these when I was trying to pry them apart. So I decided the easier method would be to actually take the figure apart. And honestly, it wasn't too difficult. Just heat them up, pop the legs apart, take everything off, put the legs back on. It's pretty simple. Jackalman, no muss, no fuss. Pop the head off, take the fur off, put the fur on, pop the head on. You're good to go. And then the weapons, of course, are just weapons, and we all know how to swap head sculpts. I am very, very happy with the end result here. Obviously, I would prefer that this didn't have to have happened, but I am happy that Super7 decided to do this and is giving this to us, you know, as just a means of making amends for the errors in Wave 1. They could have said, no, you're stuck with what you got, but they said, you know, here's a handful of fixes and a bonus head sculpt that they didn't even begin to need to give us, but I do really like that inclusion. So there you go, guys. That is how I managed to get my figures in working and more accurate order. Let me know how you guys fare with this. Let me know which method you use, and I'll catch you next time.